Hey guys, my name is, you should know, is Rambo here, coming back with a new and improved video. And I have always wanted to do this, and you guys know that I love TV. Maybe some more than others, you know, I really like TV, but nonetheless, I love TV. And I love to talk about TV. Like, I could talk about TV all day. And I have particular, you know, shows that I like that are on TV. You know, I really love TV. Let me just get that out of the way. But I bet a lot of you guys have always wanted to know what my favorites were. Yes, I made one a while ago basically talking about what my favorite top 5 were. They'll be on the list, but I really wanted to give what my top 10 favorite series were. So I really wanted to give you guys that. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and hopefully it doesn't go on a little too long, but I just kind of wanted to make a video that's kind of much more interesting. And if you guys like TV, you know, if you guys like these TV shows, then we'll comment down below. I would love to hear what your guys' favorite TV shows are. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite TV shows are. So I would suggest that a lot of them are, you know, there's a lot of great TV shows, but let me put down what some of the great what a lot of my favorites are. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. So, well, I'll talk to you, so hopefully you guys enjoy this. So okay, so let me get down to it. Number 10 is kind of a cheat, but it's there are 3 childhood favorites of mine. It's Sweet Life series, That's So Raven, and Hannah Montana. If you guys were born in my time, which was 2000, if you guys were children in my time, which was 2001 to 2000, around 2012, sort of, then you guys are very familiar with these 3 shows, because these were the 3 biggest shows in children's TV at the time that it was on. And these were my personal favorites. And I'm not going through what the greatest children's TV show is of all time, but these are just some of my personal favorites. And I really love these 3 TV series. They're just so great. Like, you know, let me just go down, you know, really, I know Hannah Montana is really girly, first of all. But why I like it so much is because it's funny, and it can be really cheesy at times, and it can be really girly, and some of the girly humor is actually funny, and it's just hilarious, and I love it. Now, there's some stuff that are kind of cheesy about the show, like the fucking songs. Like, I hate the songs from Hannah Montana so much. But, you know, they could get away with, you know, making shitty songs. They were so bad. Like, I saw the movie when it came out because I was a fan of the TV series. You know, I'm like, ah, whatever. Movie wasn't as great, and when the TV show ended, it was sort of a finally, you know. It was a very much finally. My number 1 favorite out of these 3 is Sweet Life. I love Sweet Life. Sweet Life is so great, and it's about 2 boys' lives. That's what it is, you know. It's basically just like, this is a normal 2 children's day, and this is basically a normal twins' day. This is 2 normal boys having a normal day, and you know, it's kind of like, they're not like stand-up comedians. It's not like Seinfeld, but it's a sort of children's version of just Sweet Life is just a normal child's day. It's basically just these 2 kids. This is just a normal day for them, and then it's just funny crap happens. You know, here's some funny crap, you know, that you were just gonna give you. And That's So Raven's kind of like that as well. It's much more artistic. You know, I like That's So Raven because the visions the visions were so like, they were so over the top on That's So Raven. Like, That's So Raven was over the top. Sweet Life is kind of like a children's Seinfeld. And Hannah Montana is the girly show that all the like, when you were a little girl, you all, like, when you were, like, if there are girls who watch this channel, which I don't doubt in my mind that there are probably some, that was probably the show that you guys watched. And why I love all three of them, I remember the crossover, and that was like, you know, That's So Raven kind of ended when it could have done a lot better than it did. It really could have, and I was really disappointed that it ended, like, so early, and, like, they came out with Corey in the House, which was funny, but it wasn't the same as, That's So Raven, and, like, you know, and it was just so ridiculous and over the top. Like, That's So Raven, like, all the Disney shows are, like, crappy nowadays, like, they're so shitty, but, you know, That's So Raven was just so amazing. Like, other people would say, oh, this sucks, you know, always the newer gen, you know, like, the kids of the future, like, the kids who are growing up in, like, when I'm 14, like, my cousins, for example, they're gonna say that, you know, like, shows like Dog with a Blog is, like, a really, you know, funny show that they loved when they were children. They're one of their top favorites. And, then the kids next to them are gonna say that, then they're gonna say that, then they're gonna say that. It's gonna be the same thing, but what's so good about these shows is that it's not just, this is a kid's show. This is a kid's show. These are kids' shows that takes its audience, that does take its audience seriously. You know, it kind of goes through some of the issues, like, you know, when people get bullied, you know, there are some good episodes of some series that are not actually that bad, you know, I mean, they're not that bad, like, the newer shows, like, there's some newer shows that aren't that bad, like, you know, Austin and Ally. I don't watch Disney that much anymore, but I could go on and on and on about why this show is good, but these were just my favorite childhood memories. I lived them through Sweet Life. The Sweet Life on Deck, I watched it faithfully till the end. Wizards of Waverly Place was also a really good show. You know, that was also a very well-made show, and I really loved that one, but it was not as good as Sweet Life and That's So Raven and Hannah Montana. Those are just my personal favorites. You can say whatever you want, and, well, you know, that's just my personal favorite TV shows from childhood. Number 9 has to be South Park, and this is sort of an obvious one because everyone loves South Park. All my friends love South Park. All my parents used to watch South Park, and I was surprised because they're kind of sheltered. Well, I mean, they let me watch a lot more than I should, but I mean, you know, there's some that they let me watch, and South Park is one of those shows. I love South Park. It's just such a funny show. It's a funny show, and it's so well creative. It's very creative, and I love its satire. Like, its satire really asks the view. It's sort of a mirror. Like, I remember the Nostalgia Critic when he talked about South Park as one of his, you know, favorite comedy series, is from you know, one of his favorite comedy shows and all that. And I, you know, I remember when it was he was talking about it, and he's just like, it's kind of like a mirror of people. You know, they're always like, this is what you guys look like. You know, it's like, it reminds me of a Fluffy comedy routine when he's talking about, you know, him and his wife get into these arguments, and and his wife is just, you know, complaining at him, and he's just like, and he pulls out his pencil, and then she just walks off, you know, and then he just laughs, you know. It's like, it's material for his comic book, or his comic routine. It's really funny, and that's what this reminds me of. This is a mirror, you know. Every time they see something that you're just like, wow, we can really make fun of this, they write it down. They write it down, and they're just like, here, this is what we're going to do this week. Now, there are some episodes that I don't necessarily agree with. Now, that's why the show is so good, because there's some episodes that I don't agree with. Now, there are some people who say, you know, Family Guy is, you know, and that is bullcrap. I mean, I love Family Guy, first of all. I do watch it, you know. Family Guy is a very creative and a very fun show, but it's too... It's I don't want to say this, and I'm not getting political or anything, but it's kind of too it just says a bunch of dumb shit. And same thing with South Park, but Family Guy is sort of a ripoff of The Simpsons. Like, if you pay attention, The Simpsons and Family Guy are very, very creepily similar. Now, that's not the reason why I don't really I prefer South Park over Family Guy, but The Simpsons and Family Guy are similar. And South Park is a totally more creative idea. It's these 4 kids, and they're just 4 kids living in Colorado. Like, I mean, it's so funny, and it's so ridiculous. Like, they do so much weird shit. Like, I didn't even play the game, unfortunately. That sucked. I really did want to play it, but I watched the walkthrough. That looked just so funny. Like, it's... South Park has not run dry, is what I like so much as well. You know, the Nostalgia Pit critic also pointed that out. I'm a big fan of the Nostalgia Critic, so I'll mention him a lot in this episode. Or not really episode, but video. But South Park is just amazing. And it's one of my favorites. So, really, that's kind of... it's really a funny show. Like, there's some things that I don't agree with on South Park. Of course, there's going to be things you don't agree with on South Park. But, it's still funny nonetheless, you know. It's made some views about some things that I do believe in that I don't exactly believe in. That, you know, they've said some stuff that I don't like, but, you know, that's what's so good about the show. You don't always agree with it, but it's still funny. So, that's why I like South Park, so... And also, if you guys ever watch the movie Team America World Police, that is the best movie ever. I love that movie so much. Like, I mean, there's a lot of great movies that I love that are much more critically acclaimed, but in the comedy movie genre, that is my favorite. Team America World Police. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are both just comedic geniuses. They are both amazing, so, I mean, that's just awesome. Number 8 has to be the Boondocks, and I know I kind of just quickly moved into the next one. Number 8 is the Boondocks, and I just love this show. This show, to me, is a voice for people, and it's not just for black people, but really for all kinds of people. Now, it is very black-themed. It is very black-themed. You know, Huey is the radical leftist revolutionary, and Riley is the gangster wannabe, gangster rapper wannabe guy, and you know that's Riley. So it's very black themed, very very black themed, and it's very black themed, and I don't know what to say. This show gives a voice for people who are like me, who are very curious about what's going on, and it shows a lot of the, you know, hypocrisy in America. Like, my favorite episodes, personally, from some of my favorite episodes are morely the controversial episodes of the Boondocks. I really like controversial stuff because it's much more funny and it's much more cool to see what this guy thinks of this, and it's really funny, and it's through the eyes of these 2 boys. Like, the 2 episodes that were made about BET, I've actually watched them, very hilarious, and, you know, and he describes very well that, you know, BET's just this channel that's like, here's some funny shit, you know, that's, again, you know, BET is very black-themed, and, the guy who created it, Aaron Magruder, has had a couple beefs with them. And what's funny is that, you know, that's kind of just, you know, it's like, I mean, the way it's shown in the series is, yeah, kind of too far a little bit, and yeah, I mean, there's some stuff in the Boondocks that I don't agree with on some things, but, you know, again, it's like South Park. There are some things you, of course, don't agree with the show, but this show, it's not, this show is, I agree with it, more of the time than I do with South Park. South Park, I do agree with it some, but then there's some I'm like, hey, whoa, 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 I think they're going too far here. And, but what's so good about this show is that, it does know its limits, and it knows when they may be going over the limits, but they still don't, they still do it. And I like Aaron McGruder because he just doesn't really give a crap. And I really like, like his saturation of Tyler Perry was really funny. Winston Jerome. And that was really funny. Like, he's like, I'm Winston Jerome, and Grandpa goes for the, I really love Granddad, he's really funny. Like, also, my other favorite episode is the Obama episode where, Werner Herzog comes in to interview, Ruckus and Huey and Riley and, Granddad and Tom and his wife, who are big libs, but, who are very left-leaning, should I say. I'm sorry if I offended anyone with those comments, but, probably not, but, okay, back to the thing, but yes. Tom and Sarah are very left-leaning, so they really like Obama, and I really like that episode because it's showing people they were blindly following Obama when he first came in. Like, people have kind of realized over the years that Obama wasn't the greatest president out there, but, I mean, not to get political or anything, but, the Boondocks, Aaron McGruder shows, he wasn't exactly who we thought he was, like, even, I remember what it was, like, everyone was excited over Obama, even I kind of liked Obama, his ideals were okay to me, like, I was kind of 8, and I didn't really know, and, I mean, like, a lot of people, like, my dad even voted for Obama, so, I mean, that means a lot, I'm just kidding, I mean, it doesn't really mean, okay, yeah, I guess that means a lot. So, I mean, yeah, he did promise a lot of good things that he sadly did not give. So, that's really kind of what he's pointing out. He's just like, guys, Obama's not who we thought he was. Just stop denying it, That's really what he was pointing out. And I really like the moral of the episode. It's much more of a comedic moral at the end of each episode. And, my favorite episode, personally, is the fundraiser. And it's like the best hate speech of the best, like, monologue in comedy history. Like, Riley likes to watch, like, gangster movies, like Al Pacino. He was quoting Al Pacino from, he likes to quote Al Pacino from Scarface all the time. And, by the way, I love that movie. That's a great movie. I also watched the original one made by Howard Hughes. And, that's just a great movie. I love, Scarface, but it's really funny. Like, when, it's hilarious, like, the first episode of the whole series, when Riley shoots Ed out the window, like, that's just gold. I love that so much, I really love Ed. He's really funny. Ed the Third, Ed Wunsler, Ed and Rummy, they're really funny. I really like them. They're hysterical. They're funny. And, really, when it comes to sitcoms, man, The Boondocks is amazing. It's a really funny show. And, now, season 4, that was when Magruder left, and that's when the show just kind of dried up, My opinion, when you don't have the original, the guy who gives you all the ideas, you really just run dry on ideas. That's really just it. Like, you've heard the old saying, when the person goes away who originally, did it, or maybe it's not an old saying, but it's my saying, it's if the old guy goes away, then it's never just the same. Or Mozart once said, if it's already perfect, there's no changing it, that's just kind of it, so I wouldn't, And my favorite episode of season 4 was the one where they kind of, it was the episode where Riley said, like, this kid was, like, grinding or something, and Riley called it gay, and everyone starts, like, all the, gay pride people start freaking out about it. And that's really funny, because, I mean, Boondocks is also like a mirror. It's like, people, look at what you're doing. This is this is stupid. Like, this is what you look like. This is what I'm going to use for my comedy material. You guys are just making the show, you know. You're making the, you're making the bills for me, you know. It's really funny. Like, I also like the King episode where Martin Luther King comes back as well. It's also, like, I could make a top 10 favorite episodes of the Boondocks, and it would be amazing. But, you know, I'm not really a guy of making top 10s, but, you know, I like talking about some of the stuff that I love, and I thought that it would be kind of fun to talk to you guys about some of the stuff that I like. So, I'm going to continue on from that. Number 7 has to be Dexter. Dexter is... what can I tell you? People are surprised that I've seen shows like Dexter. And, really, my opinion on it is, I've watched a lot of adult shows. I've watched a lot of adult movies. It's not that you're young enough to watch it. It's if you're mature enough to watch it. If you're mature enough to say, that is a part of life, it happens, and, you know, it's not okay all the time, you know, but that's just what people do, you know. I mean, I watch George Carlin, and he swears like a sailor, you know. It's just more that the people just, you know, it's much more surprising. So, I mean, a lot of people are surprised that I watch, you know, very vulgar stuff. So, but Dexter is a great show, and it really shows, you know, serial killers, you know, Michael Hall, I forgot what his name was. It's a 3-word name, but, it's a really good show. Like, you know, it shows, Dexter, what moral code he lives by, you know, it basically shows... Did you see the on-air sign? Well, what? Yeah.
Do you think you might want to golf later or not?
Maybe. I'm planning on going with Lisa.
I don't know if Lisa were to drop you off after that at the greens or not.
Maybe
Here's
not. I did it yesterday, Mom.
Huh?
I said yesterday. I did it.
Okay, does that mean no?
No.
Here's the answer.
Mom.
Here's what I'm trying to say. If you do, put a collared shirt on before you go, so if she drops you off, you'll have your collared shirt on.
Okay, Mom. I am making...
Okay, so listen, if you don't, then don't wear one.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Mom. Talking about golf. First of all, I'm not rich. It's a fun game, and my dad really likes it, and I actually grew to like it. Okay, I don't want to talk about that. That's a different subject. Back to Dexter. Dexter, really great show, and I always like the stories. Like, I mean, it's always the same thing. Like, there's a bad guy in each season, but they always came up with really creative villains. You know, like, the first villain was his brother. The second villain was him, but, you know, he framed Dokes for it. He framed, you know... Me and my dad, me and my parents watched this show. Like, I told them, watch this show. It is great. I love it. And they actually caught up with me, which is actually surprising, because I was pretty far in the series compared to them. And, now, the show is just, there's some parts that are just, like, I got a message. Okay, sorry about that. Let me turn my phone off. Okay. But back to Dexter. Dexter is a really great show because... Okay, yeah, back to the villains. Like, Season 2, well, actually, it was Dexter who was basically the killer the whole time, because they found the bodies, but really, Dokes was kind of the villain, because, you know, Dokes was, you know, was sort of, was, you know, watching him. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, you know, in Season 3, it was the Skinner and the lawyer guy, the Cuban lawyer guy, and, Season 4 was the Trinity Killer. I'll never forget him. I haven't even finished off that season yet with my parents. Like, I've seen the whole series through, but, I haven't seen the season yet with my parents, and, Trinity Killer was memorable. And, Season 5, that was just weird. And Season 6 was also a pretty weird villain. Those villains actually creeped me out more than they did, actually supposed to be more of a threat, That was just kind of stupid, That was a weird villain. Season 7 was Lagerta, which I hated her the whole series, so, yeah, I really hated Lagerta, so I really did not like her. She was really just, wow, I want her to die, so, I really did not like Lagerta. And then Season 8 was the son of the psychiatrist of Dexter, and, that was the final villain of the whole series, and I really liked the ending. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but shall I say, it is a very ambiguous ending. And, I'm not going to give out directly what it is, but it is a very ambiguous ending, and I love ambiguous endings. Like, one of my favorite shows on the top 5 list has a very ambiguous ending, and is very well known for its ambiguous ending. But all great shows, shall I say, ends on a sort of ambiguous note, I always like that. The greatest shows always have the most ambiguous endings. So, So, yeah. That's Dexter for you guys. Sorry about the constant interruptions. Yeah. Number 6 is The Twilight Zone. And that show is just amazing. I love The Twilight Zone because... Oh, whoops. My thing fell down. Okay, let me pick it back up. Okay, but, anyways, so, The Twilight Zone is, again, I've mentioned several times that The Twilight Zone is one of my favorites of all time. And what's so different about The Twilight Zone from, other TV shows is, you don't like the characters. At least that's what I got out of it. I've watched the whole series all the way through. Now, on Netflix, they don't have the whole series. They don't have Season 4. That sucks, because that would be much more interesting to have all the seasons on there than just most of them. That's just stupid, And I really don't like that, But The Twilight Zone, I've seen the recreations, but then again, it's like the Boondocks with Aaron McGruder gone. It's just not the same without the original doing it. It's just, I liked The Twilight Zone. It metaphorically kind of told us, what... It's basically the inner mind of Rod Serling. The whole series is the inner mind of Rod Serling. That is what you have to know before you watch The Twilight Zone. It is the inner mind of Rod Serling, who created the show. And he talked about a lot of things that were relevant to that day. He talked about... racism. He talked about censorship. He was also known as the, from my knowledge, of a TV nerd. I know that he was known as the angry man of Hollywood, because he would always get pissed off that they'd be like, "Whoa, Rod, I think you're going too far on here," and he's like, "No, I wasn't." And then they would all get into these really big fights, over this, and that's what he was also really known for getting into fights with other people. He was very known for getting into fights with other TV stations and over TV executives over what he made. He's just like, "This is what I'm making. You're making it the way it is." Now he made some controversial ones, and I'm not going to go over what they are, but some of my favorite episodes from the series. One of them is this sort of it's sort of a weird episode. One of my favorite episodes is this episode about this woman, and the twists. Okay, let me get to the twists. The twists, they were always known for the twists, and I always liked the twists. There were some twists where I'm like, really? That was it? That was the twist? That was just kind of stupid? That was more, stupid than surprising? For example, there's one called Death's Head Revisited, and I actually watched it the other day. It's about a Nazi commandant who comes back to a concentration camp, and one of the people he used to torment is there, and he's there. He's like, he calls him Captain. He's like, "Good evening, Captain." It's very obvious that the dude's dead. Spoilers. It's very obvious that the dude is dead. It is very. You could tell from how the dude is dressed, he is dead. He is dead. The dude is seeing him in his mind, and really the whole point of the episode is, Rod Serling basically liked to talk about what he thought, and that's basically what he did with the Twilight Zone. It was, again, Inner Mind of Rod Serling. And that episode was basically, a lot of people always ask, why do they keep the concentration camps up? And Rod Serling basically kind of answered that. He says, to remind us to never fall for this sort of, hopefully that this will never happen again, and this will remind the world that as long as the world exists, hopefully this will never happen again. That's the whole point. So, that's the big point of that episode, and I really do like that moral. It's a very good moral, and it's a really good moral of the story, That's why they keep them up. They don't want it happening again, and they're keeping it up to remind us, people, we're not going to let it happen again. Hopefully not. Hopefully that doesn't happen again, and I really am hoping it's never going to happen again, and I'm really hoping that, so, And another one of my favorite episodes is one of the more famous ones, and it's where this guy is, he's an avid book reader, and I can relate a lot with this episode, because I love to read. That's surprised even to everyone. Like, all my gaming friends, all my personal friends are very surprised that I love to read. But it's true. I am an avid reader. I love to read books. That's why I write them. It's fun to read, and it's fun to make my own products that I can make that people can read. If you're interested in reading them. Now, I'm not, like, self-promoting or anything, but, that's why I like doing what I do. I stopped linking my Wattpad a while ago, but it's still up there, so, But anyways, okay, maybe I am promoting, but let me get back to what I was talking about. This guy's like this avid bookworm, and he's just so annoyed that he just can't read, for once, His wife gets, like, his wife hates it, his boss hates it, his boss hates it, just everyone hates him reading. And this guy could read in the shower if he could. Like me, like my parents always say, you are just going to read in the shower if you could. And, that would be funny. That was true, but I wouldn't think that would be true. And, and this guy's just so annoyed. He just can't read. He just wants to read. That's all he wants to do. That's his ultimate motive in life is to read. And he wants to read. And, he goes into his cell. He goes into this bank vault during lunch hour to go read, and then a bomb goes off. And one of the constant themes in Twilight Zone is nuclear war, and this is one of them. And dude's just kind of like the last man on Earth. He's alone. He doesn't know what to do. Like, he has all this lifetime supply of food, and he just starts to he kind of loses it for a while, and he ends up he nearly kills himself. And then he sees all these books, and he sees a library, and it's still intact. And then, you'll never believe it, this dude is thrilled. Like, this guy is so thrilled that he can finally read, and, right then and there, he's going to grab something, trips, and breaks his glasses, which are really thick. And that is just the end of the episode. Like, what was that? What's going to happen to him? Now since he can't read the damn books, what is he going to do? Stuff like that, there's some twists that are pretty annoying. Like, there's this one where this really rich guy tries to get some people who've wronged him in the past, which, by the way, were all of them were his fault. It was all his fault that happened. And, even though teacher calls him out on it, she's just like, you're a scum person. We did that because we were more responsible than you were, and you are just scared. you're an ass. Again, a lot of the characters in the Twilight Zone are assholes. They are really just mean-spirited, selfish people. Like, I would just like to hit these people. Like, there's rarely any decent people in the Twilight Zone. It's just, you know, it's very rare. So, it's very rare. And, you know, just the Twilight Zone being its usual Twilight-y Zone self. And, really, you know, Twilight Zone is very famous for, you know, being Twilight Zone-ish, you know? I mean, it's very, you know, that's why it's so famous, because, you know, a lot of these characters are very jackass characters. Like, I hate a lot of them, like I said before. But, you know, there's no show like this one. So, if you ever try to make an anthology, at least know that it's just, you know, you're not probably gonna top, you know, the Twilight Zone. If you ever try to make a TV anthology, you're probably not gonna top the Twilight Zone. You just can't. It's impossible. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, back to the millionaire guy. So, yeah, it was his fault, and, most of the stuff was his fault. Here's the twist. It actually happens. Another twist. It didn't, and he just went crazy because the plan failed, and he put all, like, this time and effort in the plan, and he just went crazy. That was kind of dumb. Like, I'm just like, really? That was it? You know, when I saw the next episode, that kind of redeemed myself, you know, I'm like, ah, yes, I love this series again. But that was just kind of dumb. Like, I mean, that was seriously all you could think of? Like, are you kidding me? Were you running out of ideas that day? Maybe not, but, you know, whatever. But, yeah, Twilight Zone, once again, one of my favorites. You can ask me what my greatest TV shows of all time are, but really, these are just some of my personal favorites, so, you know. Number 5 has to be 24. And you guys have seen me tweet about 24, and this was about a year ago, and I made a whole video talking about 24. And it was really long, shall I say, that it was very long. But this show is simply one of the greatest espionage shows I've ever seen, if not my favorite espionage show of all time. And why I love this show is because it's the producers even said this. They're not like in these like big, you know, giant like areas. They're in the back alleys. They're kind of in the shadows, and I really love that, and that's what a lot of the fans like about 24 as well. I love the revival they had, and I can tell you right now, 24 is far from over, because Tony, if you saw the little side episode with Tony in it, he gets out, and so, yeah, so that might mean either Tony's out for ill or Tony's out for good, you know. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean, 24 is just flat out a great espionage show, and it's just one of my personal favorites. It's just there's no shows like this one that are just so fast paced. Like the villains are so memorable. The villains, like Ching Z is my favorite. Logan, Jack's dad, Jack's brother, Jack's The annoying part was always the moles. I hated the moles. Like, that was annoying. But it mostly always redeemed itself by... I always liked the pawn part. That wasn't the actual villain. That was like a red herring. This is the actual villain. I always loved that about 24. And, the villains, man. I just love the villains. And Jack, of course, everyone loves frickin' Jack. And, like, who doesn't love Jack Bauer? Like, that's an easy question. Who does not like Jack Bauer? You know, it's a very easy question. Who likes Jack Bauer? Who
doesn't like Jack Bauer?
Dad, do you like Jack Bauer?
I love him.
But, yeah. Jack, yeah, my dad just, yeah, my dad was a huge watcher of this show, so I remember when it went off, and I didn't really remember it that well, but back to the show, yeah, 24 is one of my favorites. It has memorable villains, memorable heroes, and there's probably never going to be another series like it. Number 4 has to be The Sopranos. The Sopranos, I love gangster movies. Let me just get this out of the way. One of my favorite genres of film is gangster movies. Like I said before, Scarface is really good, and I really love it. And, I really love, I really do love the, Sopranos. But The Sopranos is just a guy's day. It's kind of, it's basically a gangster's day. Like, they've had a bunch of guest stars, they've had a bunch of people who are very veterans in the... Now, they didn't have De Niro or Pacino or anybody like that. Like, they had Frank Vincent from, he was in The Goodfellas, he was the wise guy, or he was the made man. He was the, he was the guy who killed Joe Pesci in Casino. Spoilers. He was Phil Leotardo in The Sopranos, and he was amazing. Like, he was a good bad guy. Like, he was the, great gangster, Like, they also had Steve Buscemi from, that guy was from so many good shows that he's been in Fargo, Reservoir Dogs, which is, two of my favorite movies. Those movies are just amazing. And Steve Buscemi is just, he's really fun actor to watch. Like, he's a very underrated actor in my opinion. Like, a lot of people don't really like Steve Buscemi that much. And, I think he's very underrated. He's a very talented actor. He's very good at what he does, so I would give him more props than what he does. So, I mean, what he does get. So, I like Steve Buscemi, so, But anyways, James Gandolfini plays the perfect Tony Soprano. Here's basically what the whole series is. It is the guy with a whole... It's basically just a guy at a therapy session. Because basically the whole series is... Tony is this... He's not just a gangster. He's a guy with problems. Like, everyone has their problems. And Tony starts having these, like, panic attacks. So he goes to see Dr. Melfi, who's the psychiatrist. And she is... That's basically the whole point of the show. It's basically just Tony and Dr. Melfi's sessions. That's basically just it. So, The Sopranos, I love how it explores, it has a story, it has a good season, there's a lot of, there's the rats, there's a lot of people who are gonna rat, Uncle Junior, there's a lot of good plot holes, What pissed me off, though, and I wouldn't be lying to, is, and it pisses everyone off, so I'm not alone, but is the ending. The ending is just so bad. Like, I mean, okay, the ending is bad. I love ambiguous endings, and ambiguous endings are my favorite endings, personally. I love ambiguous endings. Like, when Walking Dead Season 4 was over, like, it drove me crazy. Like, I'm like, what are they gonna do next? We gotta have to wait for Season 4 to see what happens. We have to wait for Season 5 to see what happens. Season 5, they get away, yeah, blah. But I love thinking what happened to Tony. Now, personally, I think he's dead. I personally think he died when he got, apparently, maybe he got shot. Like, they were planning a movie, according to some friends of mine and my parents, who also were big, avid watchers of the show. But The Sopranos is still one of the greatest shows of all time, and actually is listed as one of the greatest shows of all time. And it really redefined what an anti-hero was, because Tony, he was not a guy who we liked, first of all. Tony was a jackass. He was an asshole. He was a really bad dude. But he kind of, he does think he's a good guy, just, outside of his whole, when he's being a mobster. He thinks he's a good guy and all. There's some things, but there's a lot of things in the series that Tony does that you just do not agree with what he's doing. Like, The Sopranos, if a TV critic watches this, he's just, it's not really a science that you have to talk about Tony Soprano. It's more of like, they had so many memorable characters, They had Christopher, they had Paulie. Paulie was always my favorite. Paulie Walnuts, Tony, Uncle Junior, But my favorite, personally, was Paulie. I can make a whole top 10 on how funny Paulie could be, because Paulie was much more of the comic relief of the show. He was, he was the comic relief of the show. Paulie Walnuts was he could be serious when he would, but he was most of the time pretty funny, and he was unintentionally funny, but he was funny. You know, he was a very eccentric person. You know, I could make a top 10 funny moments of Paulie, and it would just easily fit in. Now, my favorite part of the series from Paulie is where he's the intervention for Chris. He's just, when he and Chris had their fights, like, those were just amazing. Like, when he drove over his lawn, like, that was so that was so funny. Oh man, I mean, Sopranos, hands down one of the greatest, and I'm gonna keep it at number 4. So yeah. Number 3 is Breaking Bad. Guys, don't get pissed off at me for saying that this show, in my opinion, is better than The Sopranos. Because The Sopranos is a way better paced story, in my opinion, than Breaking Bad is. Now, Breaking Bad, why I like it better than The Sopranos. The Sopranos, Tony was always bad. Tony was always bad. He would try to become good, but he was always bad. He always turned back to his old ways. And it was just so easy for him, you know, it's so simplistic for him to turn back to his old ways. It was so easy for him to turn back to his old ways. And it was so easy for Tony, but when it comes to Walter White's situation, why I like it better, Walter White is a Shakespearean tragedy. And Vince Gilligan very well shows that this was a Shakespearean tragedy. This is a Shakespearean tragedy, and it really is just really Walter White was this very, you know, as Gretchen says in the second to final episode of the whole series, she says, this sweet, kind man turned into this evil, conniving, cold, calculating monster. Walt was always calculating, but he turned cold. It was a slow car ride. It was always slow. It was always a slow process. You knew it was coming, that he would fully become this angry, this evil drug lord. You knew it would come, and it finally did by the end of the series. He finally became this evil, cold, calculating psychopath. He really did become like that. And why I call him a Shakespearean tragedy is he's a Macbeth. He is a Macbethian tragedy. He really is this good man who turned evil because greed got the better of him. And that is what I love so much about the show. It is just so... It could happen. It could happen to anybody. And that is what... It reaches to you on a deep and personal level. You know, anybody could do that. Anybody could come from... He's not just a guy cooking shit in an RV. This is a guy who was good, but then he turned bad because of what he did. And he even admits it in the end. You know, I liked it. It made him feel alive. And plus, in the beginning, you know, he was just kind of bored with his life. You know, he's just like, you know, I'm just passing through. When he gets to cancer, you know, he's just like, oh, great, this is just amazing. You know, he doesn't take it very well. He's just kind of like, he takes it better than some of the other stuff he, you know, takes, like from... You know, Breaking Bad is great. From beginning to end, it's such a great series. And it's way worthy of keeping it at a number 3 spot. Number 2 has to be Game of Thrones. And this series just ended, like, 3 weeks ago, or something like that. It ended on the 23rd, I believe. And, like, every time I listen to the Bob Marley song, Is This Love, I listen to that all night after Game of Thrones ended. And that Game of Thrones is a lot like the number 1 spot, and I'll get to that in a minute. But, Game of Thrones is the darker, grittier version of Lord of the Rings. A lot of people have said that this is a lot like Lord of the Rings. It's just more darker and much more violent. Now, what I love so much about this show there is no black and white in the show. There's no good guys, there's no bad guys. There are people who obviously do bad, there's people who obviously do good. And I know you've heard me say this before, because I made a whole Game of Thrones analysis, which was pretty long. And it's me basically just saying, people, it's not black and white on that show. Now, there are people who obviously do bad, and there are people with good intentions, and there are people with bad intentions. And it's just, you know, it's not a black and white show. It's a freaking gray show. It is a gray show. All the characters have done at least something that is morally wrong, and that is considered, you know, inappropriate. You know, like Tyrion has done a lot of bad things out of a lot of the main characters. Daenerys, kind of rarely. I'm actually surprised. Like, most of the people who actually do give a shit about the rules and all that, they mostly die. Like, they mostly die. Like, Ned Stark and most of his whole family were wiped out because they followed the rules. You know, they were rule sticklers, and look what that got him. Dead, throat cutted, head chopped off, stabbed in the womb, got stabbed and shot a couple times, got stabbed in the heart by frickin' Ramsay's dad. I frickin' hate Ramsay still, but, you know, that's what happens to people who actually give a shit about the rules in Game of Thrones. That's what happens to people who follow the rules. And George R. R. Martin very well tells, very well shows people that, and, you know, you gotta do some bad to achieve what you want, you know, that's basically the whole point of Game of Thrones, and I love that so much. And, really, Game of Thrones is just a freaking awesome show, and I suggest it to all of you who are just big fans of medieval. Here's what it is. It's Skyrim, Dungeons & Dragons, and Diablo all mixed together into a show, and it's this dude's imagination. And it's Lord of the Rings darker. If you're a big fan of Lord of the Rings, you are going to love freaking Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is just a freaking awesome series. And I read the books, so, again, avid reader. Books, and they are just amazing. So, please, I suggest that you watch Game of Thrones. And my number one favorite TV show is The Walking Dead. Okay. You guys are going to get mad at me, I can tell. If you go into the comments, you're going to be like, are you kidding me? Like, The Walking Dead is your number one favorite show. Like, why? I've argued with plenty of people about why this show is my favorite. And I'm going to prepare a huge, big speech about why. I'm going to be rambling a little bit, so my apologies if it must waste your time. But here's why I like this show so much. This show... Here's the only reason I solely like this show. And maybe not other people might not like this show, but to me, people don't understand about The Walking Dead. Here's what people don't understand about The Walking Dead. People think that it's just a show about people killing zombies. And if you watch the show because of people killing zombies, and you don't actually, you know, pay attention to the story, you're not a real fan. First of all, I denounce you as a fan. I do not call you a real fan if you consider killing zombies. If you consider killing zombies, you're a fan. No, I don't consider that a fan. I consider that more of a person who's just watching for the action, and that is not a fan to me. That is just someone who's there for the gore, and that is just not it. You have to appreciate the story. That is what I like. It is not just people killing zombies. It is not just that, and no one understands. When I try to point this out, I always try to point this out. I always try to say, people, this is not just people killing zombies. This is what people do. What if you were in this situation? What if you were in the zombie apocalypse? What would you do? That's what the show constantly asks its viewers. What would you do? What would you do? How long would you last? And I would, you know, That's a very good and thought-provoking question. Now, maybe this has not been asked before. Now, the Romero movies, that's a movie where they're just killing zombies. And, I mean, the stories are good, but most of the characters you don't really make an actual connection to. And that kind of pisses me off, because you're just like... I don't really mind if they die. Like, the Romero movies used to scare me when I was little. So that's why I love the Romero movies so much, is because they used to actually freaking scare the shit out of me. Like, zombies used to scare the shit out of me. Like, they used to scare me. Like, I used to have nightmares about zombies. Like this was when I was, like, little. Like, that was my big phobia back in the day. Now, I don't mind zombies that much. I love zombie movies nowadays. And, they're really just great movies. Like, you know, the Romero movies are great. Now, they don't really have story. It's just about the zombies just taking over, and, you know, people are just trying to survive. That's kind of dumb. They didn't really make a connection, and I didn't like that. This show, a lot of shows make connections with characters. I understand that very well. Like, there's Prison Break, that, you know, my friend Davey pointed that out the other night, and, me and him had a big argument on War of the Houses about it. And, you know, yes, that is true. A lot of shows do that. But to make a show, you know, establish a connection with characters, that's really great. But what I really like about the show, and why it's my personal favorite, and why I think it's the greatest, and I said this last Walking Dead video I made, the show made me cry. And I know I said, this makes me sound like an asshole, but this show made me cry a couple times. It's touched my heart a lot, and I rarely cry. I'm serious. Ask my real life family, you know, they will tell you I do not cry that much that are supposed to be emotional scenes in film. Now, you know, and yes, like, this show has made me cry. And the one time I did talk about it was when Noah died. And you guys know how I felt about that. Like, I'm still horrified by that scene. I still can't watch it. I still cannot watch that episode knowing he's gonna get ripped apart. I can't. I'm so sorry. Like, it's just, you can call me too emotionally attached to the characters, but let me just tell you guys, I'm trying to point out that this show is so much more than people killing zombies, and it's just, that's an episode. That's not it. That is not it. It's what these people are doing and how they deal with it. That's why I like the show so much. It follows what these characters do and how they deal with what they're doing. They don't even like what they're doing. Even, you know, Rick many times admits in the series he does not like what he is doing. Many times in the film, he does not, or many times in the show, he admits he does not like what he is doing. And it's the only show that's ever made me cry. It is the only show, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. My favorite Christmas movie is It's a Wonderful Life. Why? It's the only film in my lifetime that I know of that has made me cry. Only film in my lifetime. Alpha and Omega, that was when I was a kid. That made me cry a little bit, but I thought it was just going to be a shitty ending. But now, not really, but every single time It's a Wonderful Life makes me cry. Because that guy finds happiness, and it's a touching moment, and it's one of the most touching moments in movies, and it's the most touching moments in film of all time. And that, to me, is the greatest movie of all time. Now, the greatest Christmas movie of all time. Now, I don't have a favorite movie that much, but if I did have a favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life is probably going to be the only movie that I consider my favorite of all time. I could make a top 10 movies, but that would be so hard because it's such a hard list, you know? I mean, I love so many movies. I'm a big cinema lover. So, you know, back to The Walking Dead. Walking Dead is the only series that's ever made me cry. Why? It establishes a connection with the viewer. That's what they always do to make a show. That's why all these shows are great. It establishes a connection with the character. And it establishes a connection with the character because you're just like, wow, these people are, you know, these would just be like us, you know? And we don't want these characters getting hurt. And we don't want the characters getting hurt. And they sometimes do. And they often get hurt. Like, they die. Like, there are some characters that, you know, you gotta let go of. You can't spare everyone. And there are some characters that I really did like in Season 5, the scene, I didn't talk about this that much, but the scene that really touched me in Season 5 was when Tyrese died. And, again, when Noah died, that actually made me cry, but this scene nearly made me cry. And it's much more powerful, in my opinion. I mean, his death had meaning. Noah's death, that was just a rip your heart right out of your body, oh my, that is just horrible. But Tyrese's death was one of the more meaningful deaths. Because, if you don't notice, if you've watched the series carefully and pay attention to the story, it shows very well that Tyrese is just damaged. He is just so damaged from what he saw, and he is so damaged from, you know, what he's been doing. It's just been overwhelming to him. It's just been killing him that he's, you know, it's overwhelming that he's just, you know, he's overwhelming that he, you know, it's overwhelming him. And it's really, that's why he couldn't kill people. That's why he couldn't kill that guy, Martin. Like, again, I like to justify a lot what the characters are doing, because I have read the comic book series. And plus I can tell from the series, you know, what these characters are thinking. And when you get into the character's mind, they're all justified in their own way. That's the big thing about The Walking Dead. They're all justified in their own sick ways. So, that's really what you gotta do. Like, all the fans even, you know, justify what the people are doing, you know? But with the most touching scene about Tyrese's death, let me just put it into depth for you guys. His death had meaning. That's why it was so touching. And, you know, it showed the two little girls from Season 4, Bob and Beth. Beth died the previous episode. Now, Beth's death, I'm like, what the hell was that, you know? I don't mean to be mean, but, I mean, I know a lot of people were very, very torn up about Beth's demise, and yes, I was sad to see her go, and it was a very sad death scene. But really, stab her in the throat. Like, are you fucking kidding me? You're not even gonna do damage at all with that fucking tiny-ass scissors. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's dumb. Like, seriously? Like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be cruel, and don't get pissed off at me. But, back to the Tyrese. But Beth, Bob, and, you know, Bob, and the two girls from Season 4, Governor, and that guy who freaking Tyrese didn't even kill from, I don't know why he didn't kill him, but people like to say, you know, he was a weakling, but I don't think that. I think morally he just didn't want to kill anybody, you know? Like, why did he come up with the plan that, you know, just spare everyone? He didn't want people to die, that's all. You know, it wasn't like Rick. I mean, they should have gone with Rick's plan in that moment of time. They should have. But, you know, like, I can make a whole commentary about The Walking Dead, which I have many times in the past. But the most touching moment in The Walking Dead, like, you know, they're saying it's okay. They did this in the Twilight Zone as well. But, in my opinion, this is much more powerful than in the Twilight Zone. But The Walking Dead is just, you know, it's okay. They're telling him, like, the four are the angels. The Governor and Martin are the demons, or the guy who from Terminus. The two little girls, Beth and Bob, are the angels. Like, as if I'm quoting the Walking Dead team on the Inside the Walking Dead. You know, I like watching those. And they said those were the angels, those were the demons. So, you know, Tyrese feels badly, you know, about, you know, Bob and Beth. You know, he feels indirectly responsible for Beth's death. He feels, you know, responsible in a way for Mika and Lizzie's death, two little girls from Season 4. And Bob, he feels kind of responsible for Bob's death, even though Bob, you know, didn't die because of Tyrese. But, you know, Tyrese's sister and Bob got along very well, if you know what I mean. But what's so is they're saying it's okay. And the most touching scene is when he's in the car Noah, you know, they're desperately trying to get him to back to the main group so they can get him medical attention. And they appear to him, saying it's okay. It's okay to die. And it's okay, you know, it's much more better than life. And what touched me for some reason, the one that really kind of made me about to cry, was when Bob turned around and he smiled. And then I'm kind of getting a bit emotional over this, but then I'm starting to feel it. Oh God! But Tyrese just looks out the window, and you know, they say it's okay. Then he closes his eyes and he dies. And that, if you can make a death that powerful in a zombie show and give his death meaning, that, my friends, is the greatest show of all time. And I really do mean that. And, it does break my heart that all these characters are gone, yes. I mean, I may be too emotionally attached to the characters. You can say all you want. And I've said a lot before that I do always like these characters. And a lot of other people are very emotionally attached to these characters. But if you can like, the series has made me cry. That is the greatest show of all time. If it can make, you know, I'm more of a guy who doesn't really cry at emotional stuff, even when I don't expect it, you know, but, and that is the greatest show of all time. To me. And that's going to be my favorite. It's always going to stay there. And I'm going to love The Walking Dead. I'm going to watch it till the end. Now, it may run dry. Hopefully they end it at a point where they feel like, you know, they're running out of ideas. And, you know, they're just going to, you know, that's going to be it. And that's going to be over. And, it really is, in my opinion, the greatest show. And a lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying that, you know, this is the greatest show of all time, and you're going to just say, oh, you're just too emotionally attached to characters. But what I like is that they do give the characters meaning when they die. And I like that. That is just the greatest. That, to me, is the greatest show of all time. And, well, that's it for my top 10 favorite TV series list, and I knew this would last a long time. So I'm really sorry if this lasted a while, and I know I make a lot of long-ass videos, but, yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. My name's been Rambo, and see you guys later.